This week's episode of Aussie Tech is brought to you by Start New Company. Register your company immediately today with ASIC. ABN, TFN, GST registration is also available directly from the portal. Also set up your family trust and self-managed superannuation fund and more. All at startnewcompany.com.au. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/startnewco and keep an eye out for our regular specials. Start your new company now within 10 minutes of lodgement. All legal company documentation provided after registration. startnewcompany.com.au. And also brought to you by athwebhosting.com.au. All our servers are operating on SSD drives, immediate activation, SSL certificates, Aussie support, domain registration, and more. Easy install WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and 300 other one-click installations. Generous space and bandwidth, auto backups, WordPress help and maintenance plans are also available on Contact. If your webpage is important for your business or your life, contact us today. Aussie support, secure services, athwebhosting.com.au. And now for the show.
Welcome to episode 690 of the Aussie Tech Heads, recorded on 20th of August 2020. I'm your host, Jason Oakley, and this is my co-host, Will Tompkinson. Hey, Will.
Hey, mate. How goes it?
How is the stuff up in the north?
12.
12. I tell you what I've been doing this afternoon, watching a new Netflix series called High Score. Have you watched it?
I haven't watched it. I have seen the trailer for it, though.
It is pretty good. Talking about all the 1980s gaming systems with Nintendo and Atari and all of that stuff. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it looked good.
Just started like the third episode tonight.
I saw it a couple of weeks ago on something or other, and I'm like, I got to watch that. And then it's one of those things I just haven't actually got around to yet. But yeah,
yeah, definitely worth a watch. Very interesting stuff. And they've got Ken and Roberta, who you would know from Sierra Online with all their games.
Yep.
And they have a bit of a chat. And there's a guy who wrote Ultima, starting with Ultima 1 all the way up to Ultima Online and everything. And it's really, really interesting stuff. And talking about how Miyamoto came up with the idea for Mario and Space Invaders, where it started from, and all of that stuff. Really, really interesting and a lot of fun to watch. They got a few episodes. They got tournaments that were in the it was funny because they call them world tournaments, even though it was only held in the UK. It's kind of like World League's baseball, which is only American.
It's like
they call it the world for some reason.
World Dance Dance Revolution, whatever it was, Superstars or something, and it was all Asians for like 10 years. And the 1 year they opened it to the rest of the world, America got like first and second.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny how they do that, but yeah, it's really interesting. They got video from this kid when he was 10 years old, but now he's like 50 or something. He's talking about the good old days when he played Tetris and Super Mario Brothers and everything, but a lot of really interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, it looks good. So it's something I'll get around to watching. It must be the time for retro revival at the moment. It's just all sorts of stuff happening at the moment. It's all happening all.
Yep, I've had over 700 people download my Spectrum game. At least 2 people have paid for it. One for $10 and one for $1. But
yeah, well, you know.
I mean, it's not revolutionary, world-breaking Mario type game, but
yeah,
get $11 or something.
That's it. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I think it's technology has sort of played such an active part in our life at the moment that we kind of sometimes want it to regress. So I think when you start talking with retro stuff and you lower speed gameplay, lower resolutions, lower quality, lower sound, lower,
Why did stuff
but
like Minecraft
more,
become popular, right?
well, yeah, I mean, I think that started, honestly. I think Minecraft was the start of the sort of rebirth, because everyone's like, oh, it's crappy graphics, and it's like, well, no, hang on, it's actually not. It's actually very high-end stuff made to look old, and then it
It's
sort
the
of gets people...
gameplay that makes it,
Yeah,
right?
and people go back and they go, oh, hang on, actually, no, that's right. This is what older graphics looks like. And then, it's to sit back with your mate on the lounge, relax, chill, playing games. It's the experience of the whole process now. Not just sitting in front of a computer, loading up Steam, playing a game, and be done with it.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to have... wanted to play multiplayer, you had to actually physically get off your ass, go to your mate's place and sit down, and half the time you had to bring your own control, because they only had one control too.
I used to do that. Yep. We had a computer group every Friday night for Commodore 64 gaming and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
We had probably my earliest multiplayer I remember with friends was the Nintendo Entertainment System, in terms of multiple players, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 players, all queuing one after the other to play. We actually had it figured out with CRT monitors in the old days, the old monitors. You used to be able to actually horizontally phase the monitors, so you could shift the image left and right. So we figured out, if you're playing a split screen game and you put a coaxial splitter in, you can have 2 TVs, and you can phase shift one screen left and phase shift one screen right, and you can have 3/4 of the screen dedicated to yourself.
Oh, nice.
So it's almost a full screen.
Yeah.
So the good old days. But I think that's, in some respects, I think that's what people are looking for again. And there's emulators and stuff like that. They really don't do as well as actual physical retro style products. Like, as you said, the people are remaking these old consoles and these old Commodore 64s and VICs and whatever. They're redesigning them to be slightly more user friendly. But at the end of the day, they're bringing that experience back. I think that's where some of these small consoles fell apart. They didn't have the experience. It was a HDMI cable, there was a USB power cable, and it was the controller, which was way too short. It was only a 3-foot cable. And that's not how Nintendo's worked. You had to dig out the RF cable and unwrap it and then plug it in, then find the channel and get the power supply and plug it in and unwrap the cord and put the cartridge in and then take it out, and then put the cartridge in, then take it out, and then put the cartridge in, then take it. Yeah, they're a quick shot. And that's what I mean. That they've remanufactured those, but they're not the same. But they hadn't been the same. But now,
usually Competition Pro now.
Yeah, but there's an expectation that if you buy, are they the Apple ones or are they the?
This is VZ200.
Oh, VZ.
Man.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. They had the funky. Yeah, they used the printer port, didn't they? Or something similar. Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the expectation now. When someone buys a controller, like a Quick Shot or a Nintendo or a traditional controller, they expect it to be that traditional style of controller.
Yeah. I mean, I've got this Commodore 64 Mini, but I would rather use the real Commodore 64C that I've got there than... I mean, I can load up stuff really fast. It's got this invisible green USB.
It's half the size of the console.
Thanks to the chroma key there. Actually a USB key in there, but it looks like the wall behind me. But it loads up fast. It does all the stuff, but it doesn't have the same feel as... I mean, these are fake keys. They're hard. They don't press or anything.
That was the problem I got. The same. We had a Nintendo and another one, and it's the same. They don't feel... You don't feel right. If you're new and coming into it, you'd get away with it. But if you're a traditional classic arcade gamer or whatever, and you know what they used to be like, it's not the same. And you want that whole experience again. CRT monitors are making there's actually, I think it's, I have to look it up. I think it's Philips or something is actually get back into making CRT monitors again, because they've had such a huge demand for it, big 16, 7-inch CRTs.
That's amazing.
Because
you have to do that because there's so much demand for it.
Yeah.
The old ones, you just can't buy them because everybody is
stupid
snapping
prices
them up
when you do get them.
Yeah, eBay, rare, $1 billion for a TV.
When I was working in a computer store in Melbourne in 99, 2000, 2001, we threw out hundreds of CRTs because
I
it was
threw
a
out one a couple of years
it
ago.
was a transition to LCD, and nobody wanted CRTs anymore. But now it's everyone wants them again.
Yeah.
You know, like I had
I wish I didn't, but the CRT was this big.
like 24-inch or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was about that thick.
Yeah.
And if it was like a nice 14-inch or something, I would have kept it just to plug in my Commodore 64 and BZ. But it was just taking up too much of the room. I mean, I've got a 40-something inch LCD over there that I can plug stuff into, and I just don't.
But
have
you
the
can't.
room.
It's not the same. Plugging into an LCD monitor is not the same as plugging into a CRT. It's an
No, but
entirely
the LCD
different.
monitor takes up this much space
Yeah,
that way,
it
whereas
does.
the CRT.
But the ability of a LCD to display correctly an old school game doesn't. It
Doesn't
looks
work.
entirely different. I don't care how good your emulation is. It's not the same as playing it on a CRT.
I plug my real VZ in there, and it's all the pixels are terrible. It's not all solid or anything.
And the thing was with the old school CRTs, you could have I actually had a rear projection CRT where it used 3 color guns to fire onto the back side of a screen. Like it had basically three, a red, a green, a blue projector inside it that fired onto the back of a mat, and they were all CRT. I mean, the lights in the city would dim when you turned it on. Don't get me wrong, it used a lot of power, but it was a 50-inch, 55-inch, something like that. It was pretty big for back then. And you could plug a console into it, and the graphics were every bit as good as playing them on a little 14-inch. Like, it didn't affect the graphics. You try and do that with a LCD, you plug it into a 10-inch LCD, you might get away with it. You plug it into your TV in a 55, 60-inch LCD, it's almost unplayable.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
So it's.
I had at the University of Sydney when I worked there, we had a projector that I had to fix up that was a monitor projector.
Yeah.
So I plugged it into my computer, and I'm doing IRC on the wall of my office.
Yeah, I remember that.
Also, I noticed this number here, episode. Whoops.
Sometimes it doesn't update. Like I physically update the number, but it doesn't actually
go through.
Change.
Yeah, so I mean, the real thing is the real thing. I would like to get maybe an Amiga 600. I never had one back in the day. I actually bought an Amiga mouse. Was as far as I got. Never bought the actual computer, but I was very
lucky you had that mouse.
Yeah, a friend of mine had a 500, and I was either going to get a 1200 or a 600, and I look online, and 600s are over $1,000 or something. I'm like, no, I might as well do it on a Pi, but the Pi's not going to be the same thing.
I mean, the 500 is the traditional Amiga that everybody knows, and the 600 really was that with, I think, a couple of memory upgrade, something like that.
And a bit more portable, yeah.
Yeah, but it was
smaller.
basically the same thing as an Amiga 500, really.
But all those are way too expensive for my taste at the moment.
They ran a Motorola 68,000 CPU at 7.16 megahertz.
Whoa!
Or 7.09 if it was the PAL version, because it was a different scan rate. 1 meg of memory at 80 nanosecond access time, 6 meg maximum memory up with the unofficial expansions.
They had a little door underneath the trap door that you could open and shove more RAMs in there.
Was released in 1992. March 1992. There you go.
Back in the good old days.
That was what they did. Then they did the Amiga 1200. I think that was about the last one, wasn't it?
They had the 500, the 600, the 1200, the 2000.
I did.
Maybe 4000, possibly.
So the 1200 was 92.
Yeah, Amiga 4000 T was the last one, I think.
Yeah, but did anybody have it?
It was started in 92 and discontinued in 94.
Yeah, so not really. But it was 25 meg. 25 megahertz, so it was, 7, 14, 21.
But
so
all the TV stuff was done
3.5 times.
ham mode, hold and modify graphics with 4096 colors on the Amiga.
Yeah.
All the TV stuff was done with Amigas.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, straight out of the box, the stuff you could do with them was quite amazing. Yep. We actually had them. That's the one we had at school, now that I looked at it. The Amiga 4000, we actually had one of those at school. Then it had a built-in...
It went up to 24-bit, 16.8 million colors.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. That was only the 4,000 though, I think. But they had some good games on there.
Because we had that
That
at
was where I
school, and
first saw Lemmings, I think.
it had a pass-through, a video pass-through where you could plug a RCA,
A video
AV.
toaster.
You could plug an AV into the back. It would display on the screen where you could draw live overlays out of it, and it would pass it through, and with the overlay out the other side of it.
Yeah.
It was awesome. You could do absolutely nothing with it because we didn't have the technology at school, but just the fact you could do that at the time, we thought that was the most amazing thing ever.
I had fun too because my friend who had an Amiga, when he got married, he wanted me to be the best man, so I had to do a speech and stuff. And I was talking about how before his new to be wife, the only ones he'd been involved with was Pauline and Agnes and Fat Agnes, which were all the CPU and sound chips inside the Amiga, all had female names. I was like, but don't worry, all of those were just computer chips. There was nicknames for them. This is the first girl that was ever his real love. So everybody thought that was funny, which was good because I was so nervous AF. So if we're going to talk about that sort of stuff, I guess it's a good segue into one of my stories is the ZX Spectrum was a revolution in personal computing whose impact is still felt to this day, 38 years after its original launch by Sinclair. A generation of developers, artists, and designers took their first steps into the art of software developing using a Spectrum, a machine that broke out of computing niche to touch the hearts of millions of people around the world. Few memories are powerful as finding a Spectrum under your Christmas tree or as a birthday gift, unboxing it to unveil an icon of design whose ease of use got people from all walks of life into programming and gaming. So powerful was the impact of the Spectrum, new games and apps still produced for it to this very day, make it one of the most enduring machines of all time. The ZX Spectrum Next Issue 2 is fully compatible with the original Spectrum 48, the 128, the Plus 2 and the Plus 3, and even some clones such as the Russian Pentagon, allowing it to run virtually every piece of software available. Its hardware is implemented in FPGA technology with no emulation in sight. It's capable of running the original games with enhanced capabilities such as faster processing speed, boosting 3D titles, or even loading them from tape if you want the original feeling. It supports most expansion boards made for the original ZX Spectrum via its expansion port and connects to several different types of monitors, including RGB, SCART, VGA, and HDMI. Currently on Kickstarter for the ZX Spectrum Next Issue 2, they've pledged
Imagine an alternative time.
Sorry. Bloody autoplay.
$2.195 million of the 456,000 Australian dollars goal. 3,447 backers and 21 days to go. So if you're interested in Spectrum, get the Spectrum Next Issue 2, and it should come out, I think it's around this time next year. It's going to take about a year to get them all made and sent out, but they've got over $2 million pledged. They're only after less than $500,000 for their goal. So they're very surprised that people are excited. And you don't just play Spectrum stuff on there because it's FPGA. They've got different cores. So there's an arcade core. So you can play original arcade games in the same style using the original ROMs from the arcade devices like Pac-Man and what have you. There's also other different computers that people have written cores for, which makes the ZX Spectrum basically exactly the same as the other computers. So you don't just get one computer because it's FPGA, you get all these different computers as well.
Nice. Yeah, definitely is pretty cool. Something to keep the...
I was very tempted, but it turns out it's about $547 Australian.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
And I got a lot of other expenses right now, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's a Z80 processor, 3.5 meg, 7 meg, 14 meg, and 28 meg. So that covers the range. 1 mega RAM, expandable to 2. And actually, if you think about it, it must actually be expensive to get some of this stuff made now because they don't make, that sort of memory. It's not... When we're dealing in gigabytes of RAM and stuff now, you'd be hard pressed to find a manufacturer who still makes 1 megs. You'd have to go, hey, I'll need to do a run of 10,000 of them or something, you know.
Yeah, and you need to have a good backing for it. And it's nearly 3,500 people are backing it at the moment, so it's pretty cool.
9-channel audio.
Yep. So they got some of the other cores include MSX, NES, and ColecoVision.
Calico.
You remember that from The
Yeah,
Simpsons?
that's like the
Get the
tennis.
ColecoVision.
Yeah, that's it. PS2 mouse port.
Hello, Super Nintendo charmers.
An optional GPU, 1 gigahertz processor, and 512 meg RAM accelerator board.
Yeah, and because they met a lot of their goals, they throw in a Raspberry Pi for acceleration and all this sort of stuff. Plus, they've got their own Spectrum Next system, so it's got higher resolution. They don't have the color attribute clashes. They got better sound.
Next OS.
Everything built into it.
So yeah, they've got their own thing, but it's an interesting concept. I mean, as you say though, and it has dual output. Like you can output to a HDMI and a CRT.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. But as you say, for what is it, 600 and something bucks or whatever it is.
Yeah, 547 Australian.
Yeah, it's.
I was very tempted though, because to buy just an original Spectrum ZX with no expansions or anything else is almost that much money Australian anyway.
Well, that's right, especially
like
with postage and
$250 to buy it on eBay, and then like $250 postage from the UK, which might arrive next month or the one after. So might as well get an upgraded one.
Well, yeah. I mean, once again, as long as the user experience is what you expect, you know, that's the crux of it, really.
Yep.
So speaking of semi-open source, I guess. Actually, what I might do, might mention our Patreons.
What's that up there?
Yeah, that's what reminded me. It'll we have a Patreon page, Aussie Tech Ed, patreon.com/AussieTechEds. You can, if you choose to, you can give us some money on there, which would be fantastic because it all helps.
What's the different tiers?
Yeah, we've got different tiers in there. We've got big tiers and small tiers and tears of laughter and tears of crying. Mostly tears of crying. That's predominantly what they are. No, very, very few of those. They're pretty much all genuine. But yeah, it helps us out. Goes back into the show and helps us eventually, you know, once we get a few more patrons there.
At least.
At the moment, it's covering the streaming. You know, if we can cover the streaming and the hosting and
when's Glenn gonna get something better than a 286?
We'll have to get a bit more money for that.
Everybody sign up. We got to help Glenn. Save the Glenn 2020.
Yeah, we might start up a Kickstarter.
Hashtag save Glenn 2020.
Bring Glenn's computer back into the 80s. Update it to the 80s. So I need to thank Chris, David Bird, Daniel and Amanda D, Bouncing Yellow Skull, and CD Envy.
Why does that remind me of Cauldron, the game? A bouncing yellow skull.
Bouncing yellow skull.
Doesn't it?
Does a bit.
Do you think so?
It does a bit.
That was an awesome game back in the day.
All ghouls and ghosts.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks guys for doing that. It really helps us out, and you know, as I said, you don't feel obliged to, but it's our only revenue source, and it really helps us out, making sure this show continues, because the tier that the lower end tier, which is the $4 a month one, it basically makes us do 4 shows a month because that's part of the deal. So we pretty much have to.
It's me and Mr. T out of our Minecraft for the night.
That's it, exactly. Once it gets us out of our mind. Yeah, well, that too. It removes our mind for the night. So thanks, guys, for that. And hope some more of you guys will jump on board.
Compact claustrophobia has been a bit interesting, hasn't it?
It's really hard to explain too, because it's our
Minecraft mod pack we're playing at the moment. Mr. T found he started in a room that's 3 by 3 by 3.
Yeah.
You punch the wall to get some resources, and from there you have to expand out and eventually get out into the real world or something.
Yeah, and it's we've always had struggle finding a mod pack that's balanced between being difficult enough to make the quests interesting,
But not Greg Tech
but-
enough to piss me off.
yeah, but not super difficult insofar as you get halfway through a quest and you don't want to do it anymore. But at the same time, you don't want it that easy that you can do the whole page of quests in a day. Like, so we've had a lot of trouble finding a pack that's balanced like that, and finally we've discovered it. And it really is. It's a really bizarre combination of almost wanting to quit all the time, but just wanting to go that little bit further just in case. Like, it's so no, it's been a lot of fun. But I'll have to stream
Even if
that.
it involves a lot of sewage for some reason.
Yeah, throwing things into sewage seems to be popular, and eating your poo. They're very popular pastimes in this mod pack. I'm not sure on that, but I might have to start streaming it. I should do that.
Yeah, stick it on Twitch.
That's it. But because we also have obviously the Aussie Tech Heads on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube, but Warlock and myself also have Twitch streams. Mine's Mr. Tompkinson and yours is Warlock, I believe.
Yep.
If it's set up properly, yeah. And we do occasionally stream there, not all the time, not as much as we probably want to, but we do it sometimes. So check out there and see how things go.
Yep.
So speaking of things that are kind of free, which is that thing I had back there before the other side of the other thing. Facebook. I mean, okay, we know Facebook's free, but I wonder how many people know that Facebook, among a lot of other the web-based software, is based on open source software. It's basically primarily based on Linux.
Without which they would be dead.
Yeah, more or less. So they create a free program on a free platform and then charge people to use it. So, there's that. But a lot of companies such as Facebook are active contributor to a lot of open source projects because obviously they rely on it. They like to give back to make sure the projects continue. React, which is a JavaScript library. Open Compute Project, which is open source data centers, hardware, that sort of stuff. Linux is cgrip 2, which is container software. It's a bit hard to explain. It's kind of like packages, I guess you'd call it. It's sort of what holds it all together. And now they're joining the Linux Foundation at the platinum level, which actually means that they're a paid user, like almost like a sponsor, I guess you'd call it, of the Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation supports the creation of sustainable open source ecosystems by providing a financial and intellectual resource, infrastructure, services, events, and training. So, apart from supporting the whole open aspect of it, they bring on people who are basically mentors, sponsors, whatever you want to call them, and they host everything from seminars. They train and educate people on how to build and run and maintain their software, data centers. There's a whole heap of stuff that goes on there. They're a very big proponent, along with the Open Compute Project, and there's another one I can't think of off the top of my head. They're very big proponents of keeping, I guess, freedom of the internet, unrestricted effectively. Ironically for Facebook to want unrestricted internet, but not so much Facebook. But the Linux back end of that, they don't want to shut down torrenting sites because torrents is one of the best ways they spread their installations. Like they've got some of the big ones now. The Red Hats are getting up into 6 and 8 and 10 gig files. They can't afford to host that on their server, so they use torrenting to spread that data for free, effectively. So they're big proponents of free internet. But yeah, it's Facebook's has been a member of them for a long time, but they're finally joining the foundation at the highest level as a platinum member. Facebook's head of open source, Kathy Cam, will join the Linux Foundation's board. Cam is 20-year engineering, product management, and developer relations leader, and a vast open source proponent, obviously. She's previously worked at Google and Microsoft. While Facebook has been criticised for how it deals with privacy and politics, its impeccable open source credentials, it was already the lead contributor of many Linux foundations such as Presto, GraphoGL, OS Query, Onyx. Employs many Linux kernel developers, key developers. They also have a lot of other open source projects like Facebook Connectivity, which is a telecom info project foundation, TRP, I think it is, which is bringing fast, reliable internet to underserved populations. Facebook created a unique data set with their deepfake detection challenge, because I'm sure that was purely to, all honest and pure. There was no nefarious reason for doing that. Facebook's Data for Good program, making geographic data to be shared with the aim of addressing some of the world's greatest humanitarian issues, included, which is the part of the thing that I'll talk about later that's currently under threat. PyTouch, Facebook's accelerates machine learning innovation. React.js library powers, GitHub, working with GitHub to sponsor like Major League Hacking's first ever remote open source fellowship. That just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Right?
So yeah, basically it's supporting the continued stability, flexibility, scalability of Linux and every aspect of modern computing. Linux also formed the backbone of some of Facebook's early infrastructure. That's why we're thrilled to be doing our part in sponsoring it. So it's just interesting that, amidst everything that's happening, everything that's going on, the weird laws that have been passed by governments, the weird times that we're currently in, that they just have kind of almost taken a step back and gone, well, hang on, let's sort of, help out where we came from, It's interesting. Despite the fact they're doing their best to block and censor information that's currently being passed around, but at the back end, at the programming level, which realistically is the more important level anyway, because anybody can have anybody can have a vision for a website. It's the programming and the back end and the development and design and all that makes it happen. And ultimately, they've realised that without Linux and without the open foundation of Facebook, there wouldn't be Facebook. I mean, there wouldn't be Twitter. There wouldn't be a lot of these platforms that all use. There wouldn't be Windows for that matter, because without Linux, there's no Windows.
Yeah.
So, So yes, what else do you have, sir?
Back in 2005, before the iPhone, Apple purportedly helped a US Department of Energy contractor modify a fifth-generation iPod to secretly record and store data. The exact reason why remains a mystery, but an ex-Apple engineer involved in the project thinks it could have been a surreptitious Geiger counter. This bonkers story comes from courtesy of David Shayer, a former Apple software engineer who was with the company for 18 years and worked on devices such as the iPod and Apple Watch. Shayer, who wrote the story for Tidbits, recounts a grey day in late 2005 when his boss's boss, the director of iPod software, told him he was assigned to a top secret program with two engineers from the US Department of Energy to build a special iPod. In actuality, the two engineers were from Bechtel, a US defense contractor for the DOE. The request was to build a normal functioning iPod that could also secretly record data into custom hardware. In other words, some spy level shit. At the time, the iPod wasn't a particularly easy device to modify. That's because, according to Shayer, the iPod's operating system wasn't based on any other Apple operating system. Instead, it was based on a reference platform Apple bought from a company called Portal Player and cobbled together with code from Pixo, a company started by former Apple engineers who wrote a general-purpose cell phone operating system. And to summarize, the iPod OS was quite complicated, and there wasn't an easy way to figure out how it worked without the help from Apple. So they had the guys come on site with special guest passes, and they would give them Apple source code, but they weren't allowed to take that off-site. And they could use it while they were there, and once they had all the info they wanted, they gave back the Apple source code and then shut down and moved back to the DOE, where they apparently made some devices to detect radiation from people who might be building bombs around America.
Wow.
What an amazing story. Right? They said they couldn't do it with any of the other stuff because it was locked down with digital certificates, but the original iPod video players had a really big hard drive inside. They said you could make a secret partition on there that was hidden. So if anyone plugged it into an Apple or a Windows machine that had iTunes running, it would just see the normal partition, but not the hidden one that was recording data from the Geiger counters.
Well, I know that the 5th gen iPod is the last one that a lot of the people want because one, it does hold you can put a 2 terabyte SSD in them.
Yep.
But most of them put a smaller one than that. But they do like them because they can hack them and mod them and
yeah, some people were running Linux on them and stuff like that.
Yeah, running Linux and running Doom, for example. You can play Doom on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one of the more popular. You look at the prices on them on eBay; they're dearer now than they were when they were released. Like it's stupid because of this reason.
I had an iPod Nano I ended up giving to my cousin's daughter for her birthday just because I didn't use it anymore. It was her birthday, so but I didn't have a big hard drive like that in it.
No,
it's like an iPod Touch, I think, actually.
Yeah, well, the Touch was effectively what the iPhone was based on.
Oh no, wait, the Touch is what my mum's got at the moment. Must have been a Nano or something like that. It had the bigger screen. It was a very long time ago.
The iPod Classic. No, yeah, I can't remember now. They changed it.
I even had one of those little mini ones about this big that just had the circle with the buttons on it, and also the chewing gum stick one that came with warning signs that said "Don't try and eat this" or something.
Tell you the best one I had was actually a Sony Walkman MP3 player. Yeah. It was about the size of a box of matches.
Yeah.
But it had pretty good battery life, like 6 or 8 hours it lasted for. I was trying to see if I can find it quickly. But the sound quality, because it used Sony's proprietary I don't know what they called it. They had a weird name for their sound suite or something, and you had to re-encode your MP3s using their software.
Oh, yep. They had their own special memory cards and stuff.
Well, no, yeah, they had the Duo, but this wasn't the memory. This wasn't memory card. It was all built in. It was only like 128 meg, but with their special proprietary software, you could put, I think you put 500 songs on it or something like that.
Yeah.
But however their encoding worked on this software, I tell you what, the sound quality was astronomical. Like, it was far superior to anything else at the time.
Yep.
It even beat a lot of like high def like CD players and stuff. Like, it was just
sad that Apple had the marketing that made everyone go with Apple as the cool thing instead of whatever was better.
Yeah, well, then that was the problem. Like, you look at them, when mini discs and stuff like that were released, the same thing happened. They just didn't have the marketing behind them to push them.
Mini disc would have been really, really good.
Mini disc. Well, we used to use mini disc for data more than audio. We used to use a lot for data for stuff we were doing.
Yeah. Good for backup.
Yeah, but yeah, I can't find this thing. It was tiny. I ended up going swimming, which is why I don't have it anymore. But the sound, I can't get the sound quality. Like, I don't understand how they got such good clarity out of it when you're compressing the files far more than anything else. Your iPods and whatever else were taking just standard MP3s that you had and getting decent sound out of it. This thing was compressing them 10 times more and getting 3, 4, 5 times better sound out of them. I just thought it was fascinating. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't find it. I can find the later model they brought out, but I can't find the really early one that they had.
Yeah, I can see 40th anniversary Walkman and stuff.
Yeah, they re-released the Walkman. I thought that was pretty cool. They did that a couple of years ago, but that was pretty That was pretty cool. I nearly bought one, but they were something stupid. I think they were $250 or something when they come out.
Yeah.
And now they're even more on. Tell you what has the orange earphones with the blue case Walkman,
Oh, yeah.
because that was what was used in I've got a complete blank now. The superheroes movie, I'm having a blank. I can't think what it was. The movie that has got Groot in it. I Am Groot. You know that one.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's it. See, it's not just me.
They had the Microsoft one. What was it called?
No, they had the Walkman, the blue Sony Walkman.
Oh yeah, but at the end of I think it was the second one that
yeah.
he was gifted with the Microsoft
Yeah.
MP3 player, and they're like, "Oh, this is the future" and stuff. Apparently, Microsoft was really pissed off because it died in the ass. It's crap.
But those original blue Walkmans now are going for thousands of dollars because players want them, and they're paying insane amounts of money for them. And I remember I had half a dozen of them at one point, all with the heads used to collapse on Sony Walkmans. That was their biggest issue. The heads would fail.
Link.
So, people keep messaging me. Stop it.
It's me.
Well, it's not just you. It's been a few people who've done it.
The MP3 player. It's got the history of all the Sony stuff, including the blue one.
Yeah. Yeah, the first Sony Walkman. I wonder if it probably doesn't have it on there either. But yeah, it's anyway. That's enough killing time while trying to find something I can't find.
They didn't have it in that link. There's a little blue one that's.
Yeah, no, that's not it.
No. Oh.
It's incredibly obvious. As soon as I see it, I'll say like it's. I've never seen another device that looks like it.
I can't even. Do you even remember what the Microsoft one was called?
Nope. I don't. Until that movie came out, I didn't even know they'd done one.
Yeah.
And then they come out, I'm like, what is that? And then I looked it up and went, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Zune.
Zune, that's it, yeah.
Microsoft Zune, yeah. They tried to take on Apple and it just died because nobody wanted a Microsoft one. And you have a look at websites. Microsoft didn't want the Zune in the Guardians of the Galaxy because they made so much fun of it. How crap it was.
Yeah, well, it kind of deserves it. But you know the I don't know.
And when you wanted to send a file to somebody else, they called it squirting.
Yeah, that's right.
Squirt the file to somebody else, like, no. That's a terrible.
Here, let me squirt you. Yeah. the one thing I remember when I ended up getting my N95 Nokia phone.
I wanted one.
At the same time, the Sony Walkman phone was out.
Ah.
And I listened to that again and I almost got the Walkman phone because, once again, the audio clarity in that thing was insane. The phone, it was a candy bar phone. It was useless, had a crappy camera. Everything else was garbage. But it had absolutely amazing sound, and I nearly got that over the N95. At the time, the N95 had the best camera on the market and all sorts of stuff. I love that phone. It was great.
Yeah.
Flipped out both ways, different media modes, and it was good fun. Yep. Until one day I flipped the keyboard and it just kept going.
Oh.
so that was the end of that. But yeah, that thing, the if for no other reason, I would track down one of those just to have, because they sound absolutely amazing. So
kind of like the Gravis Ultrasound was the best sound, but everybody wanted the Sound Blaster.
The good old Gus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was
Gus for the win.
But it was only MIDI sound, wasn't it? It wasn't digitized.
No, they
sound.
had full digitized sound and stuff, I think.
Or was that later on? Oh yeah, it was too. That's right.
It was Gus 128 or something.
Yeah.
Brilliant machine.
Originally they were only a MIDI.
But Sound Blaster 1 is kind of like the Beta versus VHS.
Yeah, I actually bought with not this computer, with the last computer, I bought a dedicated Sound Blaster sound card. And I ended up going back to the internal one because I had latency issues, I had buffering, I had all sorts of random stuff happening, and it was all because of this sound card.
All right.
Which is ironic because every sound card I ever owned in my 386 and 486 and 586 days and 686 days and basically anything that wasn't built on was a Sound Blaster.
Yeah.
So
Some of them came with the joystick port, game port.
game port, yeah. Well, most of them did, especially
And
which
CD controller.
well, the earlier ones, yeah, they had a reverse IDE port on them. It was IDE, but it was flipped, and
Only worked with the Sound Blaster CD-ROMs.
the old single speed. I think they went up to 8 speed in that configuration. They had the remote control that you could play the audio CD through the thing. That was their best asset. But damn, they were expensive. They really were. It was stupid expensive for what they were. You weren't getting anything. You're literally just getting a generic CD-ROM with an infrared remote, but it was the coolest thing ever. Like,
I think it was like was it AWE 32?
Or 32.
That was the one that won everything. Sound Blaster 16 and the AWE
The
32, the best sound. And
I had the Sound Blaster 16 Pro most of the time,
Yep.
which was just basically a Sound Blaster 16 with higher bitrate. But the Auto, I could never afford an Auto 32.
but didn't do music sound great?
I tell you what I loved with the main reason I loved having the Sound Blaster Pro was they had an analog output. Like they had the normal output, but then they had an analog output with a volume control. They actually had a boosted audio output. You could plug speakers straight into it.
Ah, yeah.
Unpowered speakers, and it was great because I could go rock up to parties and stuff and play WAV files. Yes, WAV files, because MP3s weren't a thing. And I could play WAV files directly through speakers, and it was the best party trick ever.
We all thought that when Google announced their acquisition of Fitbit late last year, we'd not see any more Fitbit devices. Instead, we may start seeing Google devices instead. Fitbit, possibly because the acquisition is yet to be approved by regulatory bodies, though, have other ideas, and 3 new Fitbit devices have leaked overnight. The Fitbit Versa 3, the new Fitbit Versa 3 looks to build upon the success of previous 2 generations, but add a few handy features. New features include inbuilt GPS, which was in the Ionic and the earlier versions, and what appears to be Google Assistant support. The big difference design-wise is the lack of any physical buttons on the watch, which appears to be a touch-sensitive area instead.
Ooh.
And the Fitbit Sense, which I might be keen on getting. The Fitbit Sense looks to be the higher-end version of the smartwatch family here. While it has the same design language as the Versa 3, it appears to have added software functionality. The extra functionality appears to be full ECG support and Google Assistant support. The Sense will likely be their premium product, and also possibly means that the Alexa support will obviously be going, since Google won't want to support Alexa. And the Fitbit Fire 2 looks to be very similar to its predecessor and offer the same basic fitness tracking capabilities. Speculation is rife that the pending Google acquisition of Fitbit will cause a previous Alexa integration to be nixed in favor of Google Assistant. It will not surprise us if that's the case. All of the above devices will likely be released later this year, possibly September, with a small incremental improvements, stopgap enhancements before Google take over and hopefully make us all the perfect Pixel watch we've been calling it for years.
Yes.
So I would be keen on maybe getting the Sense. People are still buying my Fitbit apps and watch faces, so I'm very happy about that.
I'd be happy to go to think about it if they went to Google, because nothing else I have is...
Yes, that's the only Alexa thing I've got is my watch at the moment.
Sorry about the noise from Facebook, guys. Somebody's decided they want to send me 400 bloody Facebook messages all of a sudden.
Bing, bing. Well, if you weren't such a popular boy.
Can I mute this tab? Oh, I can. There we go. Hey, I forgot you could do that in Chrome.
Yes.
Just mute that tab. There we go. Problem
Very
solved.
handy, right?
Yeah. It's not something I do often.
STFU tab.
I'll show you who's boss.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think that's probably one of the main reasons I didn't get one. I don't have any other reason that I would use Alexia, and I'm not gonna just have one one thing for that. Like, you know.
There's a really funny YouTube video I've been watching of this lady called Rosie Okumura from the US, and she's a trained voice actor, and she gets messages on her voicemail from scammers in the US who say that you've won a $100 gift card, and all you have to do is provide your credit card details to charge $1.95 to send you the gift card, when in reality, once you provide your credit card details, they empty your bank account. So she rings them back and pretends to be a little old lady called Irma, but also she does voices similar to Alexa, and pretends there's an Alexa who's triggering on some of the words that the scammer says while they're in the conversation. So
What's
she'll be
up?
like,
Or,
oh,
"What
yes,
up,
I have to
dog?
enter in my
What's up?"
credit card details. Hi, I'm sorry, I don't have credit card details. I am a computer. What else can I help you with? I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Shut up, Alexa. Oh, bloody Alexa is talking all the time. I can't get her to shut up. My son got me this Alexa thing, and she's talking all the time. But because I get very bored because I'm lonely all by myself, sometimes I talk to her, and it's like having someone in the house, you know. And she tries to piss off the scammers with this stuff, but it's really hilarious.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
I showed it to my dad. He was watching it for like 10 minutes the other day. He's got some really funny stuff. There's a guy who's got an Indian accent, and he says, oh, yes, I am from Texas. Like, oh, what part of Texas are you from? I used to live in Texas. Oh, I'm from the Texas, you know. I already told you I'm from Texas. Like, yeah, but what part? You know, Texas.
You know, it's funny when they go, oh, you know, I'm, you know, Fred, and we're from such and such, and we're based in Sydney. I'm like, oh, so how's the Opera House and the bridge looking? Oh, they look good. I can see them from my office. You're like, well, where are you? Because no offices in Sydney can you see both the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House at the same time. There's a guy, I'm just looking to see if I can find him on YouTube. I was watching, and he hacks the hackers or scams the scammers. And what he does is when he gets a call, he's got this whole back end thing happening on his system, and when they get access to it via LogMeIn or whatever program they're using, he
has like
has
a
access
virtual machine or something.
Well, it has a virtual machine, but when they open the tunnel, he then has access to their computer, and like he's got access to theirs while they're mucking around with his. So they're trying to obviously
install a virus or something.
Well, he does all sorts of things.
I mean, they're trying to install a virus while meanwhile he accesses their system. And
well, they're just looking through theirs to see, like, they do things like, oh, they run like sysinfo, and they go, oh, see all these things that are stopped. These are all supposed to be running, and so this guy
see all these errors in Event Manager.
Yeah.
Oh my God, your computer's dying.
And so what
virus.
he does is he actually I'll quickly flick over.
Is he the guy who turns on their webcam and videos them? Yeah.
This guy actually got into their security system because they're literally installing it, and they didn't have any security set up on their surveillance system. So what they actually did was he obviously kept them talking, and he rung back on several occasions so that he could identify who was talking to who and who was using what false name and all this sort of stuff. And then they eventually figured out there was one camera that was looking at when they were installing it was looking at this rooftop garden.
Yep.
And he used a friend of his who lived over there, who was another YouTuber, and he flew his drone around until he found a building that had the rooftop garden.
Yep.
And then they used that, and then they could pinpoint when they were looking at the cameras inside the building, they could work out where they were and who they were and what important. So they actually literally got, like, all these guys, they got access into their phone systems. They could see who they were calling, all the call logs.
Wow.
Like, he actually got right inside. He figured out who all these people were, what their real names were, what hours they were running, who they were calling, how much money they were making, all this sort of stuff, what building it was. And it goes through they did this for months and collected all this information on these scammers. And turns out they were actually legitimate. They were inside a legitimate business. Like the actual business was like on the first and second floor, and then these guys were on like the third and fourth, and they had created all the cables and stuff, and they chucked them across the alleyway to an abandoned building behind it, and they had all that abandoned building full of them as well.
Jeez.
And in the end, they ended up getting a hold of these guys, and they ended up reporting them and getting the cops onto them and getting them all taken down and stuff. But that was one of their biggest ones. It's amazing to watch. It's 4 parts. Jim Browning is the YouTube if you want to go and see him. But he does other stuff, like while he's on the call to them, he'll be doing something and he'll go into like he'll because they're obviously rotating through stuff really quick. So usually on their desktop, he's discovered they have a file that has the login details and passwords of like their router and their server and all this stuff. So whoever is on that computer can use it. So while they're accessing his computer and mucking around with that, he'll log onto theirs and he'll pull that file and he'll have access to their server, and then he goes through and like just destroys the server data and destroys all their systems and brings all their computers down. And you hear the guys on the phone, they're like, "Oh, sorry, our computers are currently experiencing difficulties."
Yeah, no shit, eh? I wonder why that happened. Oh, I've got no idea.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like the entire ecosystem just falls apart around him. And they're like, we'll have to call you back." And then he goes off at him. It's like, "These are filthy scammers and you get everything you deserve." And then he reads their real name back to them, and their real phone number and their real address, and they freak out.
Yeah. Does your mum know you do this? Wouldn't she be upset with you?
But what's so funny is you read the comments and they're like, "Oh, I'm Indian and I hate these guys. Good on you. I wish there's more people like you." Like, so even in their own...
They're giving us a bad name.
Yeah, even in their own country, they're hated. So, but no, if you go to Jim Browning and watching his spying on the scammers, it gives you an amazing insight into how they function and what they do, and how they all use this software that links a lot of these different call centers together, and once one call center has a positive hit on somebody who's given them, their card details or paid them or whatever, that particular name gets added to a database that they all share, and then that person gets more. The more calls you get, the more calls you get.
Yeah.
So, wow, we're already okay. We're an hour long. I was going to. I'll save that one till next week. Just quickly, be wary of. Go to Google. Do yourself a favor. Go to google.com and check out the letter that they're posting up there. There'll be a notification. There's also on YouTube asking you to go to follow this link and read the letter they've written. The short version of it, we'll cover it more next week because there's currently more information being changed, as I just noticed a few minutes ago. But the short answer is the government wants to charge search engines, media, third-party media, social networks, all that sort of stuff. The government wants to charge for access to news sites in Australia. So,
now, why would that be, Mr. T? It's got nothing to do with Murdoch owning the government or anything.
No, nothing like that. It's completely innocent, and they don't know what they're doing.
Except for ABC and SBS, right? They're not going to charge for that.
No, they're charging for everything.
Hates them.
Even all the independents. Yep, the whole lot.
They weren't going to do that before.
No, they weren't. They're going to make it up to the corporation to decide, but now, and this is as of like right now, I'm looking at the updates, but I haven't read it fully. But it looks like they're going to charge everybody for it.
So Australia drops off Google search.
Yeah. So effectively, go and read the letter. But basically, what it is currently you search for something, Google hits 9MSN, which in itself is a search engine, so that'll be interesting. But it hits 9MSN, and it goes, "Hey, we've got a story you want." It grabs that link, puts the link there, gives you a paragraph to read. If you like the story, click on the link. You go to that site, then they pay, as it is, because it's a paid link, they would then pay that host money for transferring the data to that site. So as much as they might have paid for the Google ad, Google then returns the favor when they click on that link and pass it through, because it's a paid link. So they ultimately, the newspapers end up getting paid anyway. But the way they want to work this is that they're going to set don't know, $1 a click, for example, and every time somebody clicks to a news link, Google has to pay, which means ultimately you're going to have to pay, which means nobody's going to do it, which means there'll be no Australian media on the internet anyway. Is the short version of that. But yeah, you might want to go check that out. And just, you know, there
Australian
is
government trying to strong arm Google to its own detriment.
not just Google. It applies to all search engines. It applies to all, you know, yeah, it applies to.
We have the search engine that goes bing.
This is what I don't understand how it's going to work with non-MSN, because that is a search engine, but they're also a media outlet. So they're going to charge themselves.
Probably. I would put it past them.
So yeah, so it needs a bit more refinement, but it's really, really bad idea. Our media sucks enough as it is. Don't give them the opportunity to suck even more. And the other, one thing though, the good thing that has come out of this is that Google has never officially, but always incredibly obviously, blacklisted certain sites and searches from their search engine. Like, you could search for something and it'll never come up no matter how you search for it. You go to DuckDuckGo, it comes up number 1. That's been lifted. There is no search restrictions on Google at the moment, because they've got the shits. They're like, you're going to play these games? Are you really going to play these games? Okay, fine. So all these
Let people
documents and
search
all
it.
these links and all these things that were locked down are currently not locked down.
Even the Pirate Bay.
Well, no, that's not as well. Yeah, you can search it. You just can't go there because the DNSs are still blocked.
Depending on who you're with.
Yeah, yeah, they're not filtering search results at the moment like they used to. So all the stuff on, I don't know, pick a celebrity who didn't hang himself, and enter that information in there, and that'll actually come up now, whereas it wouldn't before. So yeah, or you know, Bill Gates owns all the vaccines in the world, stuff like that. That stuff never used to be available, but it all comes up now. So, but I was going to do that story, but yeah, I've seen changes that come through, so I'll hold that off till next week because I don't want to be even more wrong than I usually am. So.
We hit our hour mark. We say thanks for listening to the Aussie Tech Heads show, broadcast weekly. We can be found at facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads, and youtube.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Also now at patreon.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Sign up for $4 a month, $10 a month, or from several other tiers. See the site for details. Email us Glenn, Will, or Warlock at aussietechheads.com.au. You can hear Aussie Tech Heads on aussietechradio.com, 24/7 back-to-back play of some of the best tech-related shows from around Australia and New Zealand. New shows are added each Friday, including this damn one. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.